In the fall of 1966, I left South Florida to go to Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida, to pursue a degree in piano performance. While there, I studied traditional theory in the normal way, exactly as it is usually taught in a traditional music school. I was especially good at theory, and I don't ever recall missing a question on a test, so I assumed I was learning what I needed. A few years later, my closest friend asked me to help form a dance band and play in that band with him because we both needed more money and we were looking for ways to augment our income. So we put this thing together and I showed up the first day thinking everything would be easy. I was incredibly wrong. First of all, everybody else could read chord symbols. They could all work from lead sheets, they could improvise, and they were mostly free from musical notation. I couldn't do anything. I was helpless, embarrassed, and frankly about ready to give up. I had to use standard books you buy in stores, and these standard books mostly do not have good arrangements. Fortunately, I could change things on the fly, so I was not entirely limited to what was on the page. And when you're improvising, you simply can't be. I learned how to stay away from the bass line, which you have to do if you have a bass player because you don't want the pianist and the bass player fighting with each other. Then I learned how to stay away from the melody for the same reasons. You don't want to be playing the melody on piano when a vocalist is singing the melody or another instrument is playing it because they interfere and you're screwing up the soloist. Now, sometimes you have to play everything if you don't have a soloist around or you don't have a singer and no one else is around to play the melody. Also, sometimes you have to work without a bass player, in which case you do have to play the bass line. So it's all about learning to adapt to the people you have around you and only filling out the parts that are not there, but not interfering with other people. And that's terribly important. If it's only you playing with a drummer, then you do have to do everything. And I learned that too. In the beginning, I was sort of arranging things already, but I didn't know it. I came to each gig with a whole stack of books, while all the other players just had fake books. A fake book is where you just have the melody and chord symbols. Every jazz musician and every pop musician on the planet knows how to read from these charts, and I didn't. It took me probably a year before I could play with just chords and the melody, and even then I was very slow at it. So it took me a few more years before I started to get really good at it as I picked up the system. I was missing information. I was missing a ton of information, all of which was not taught to me at college. When I found out that I did not learn all these things, at first I was confused. But later I was very angry, and I remain very angry at an antiquated system which does not teach us what we need to be working musicians. I found out that if you learn really complete jazz theory, then you know most of everything. But if you learn the traditional system, you are about 2 centuries behind. When I work with the modern chord symbols and all that, I can also go all the way back to Bach and it's perfect. We really still do the same thing that we did way back then. But what I learned in school won't even work for Debussy, who died in 1918. Think about that. It's now 2022, so Debussy died more than a century ago. Debussy's way of writing is much closer to what you hear in jazz ballads than to Bach. The problem is tradition. Now, tradition's not all bad, but here's the kind of thinking that's absolutely deadly, and you've probably heard it. Well, if it's good enough for my father, and it's good enough for my grandfather, it's good enough for me, and we don't need to change anything. This kind of thinking is what's wrong with so much of the world. It's important to know that every master musician in the past was breaking rules left and right, at every opportunity, and laughing about it. These people were all pioneers. They were changing music, not worshiping at the throne of tradition. And of course, they always fought with the establishments of their times. So now you know why I won't go near traditional theory teaching, why I oppose it, and why I hate it. And most of all, why I will not teach it to any student of mine. Now, please subscribe to my channel and leave comments about what you like, what you don't understand, and what you'd like to see added in the future.